Good afternoon. I don't know if you saw part one to this. I was telling you about the K-bar heavy duty Warthog. So I'm just putting my remote in my pocket on my stool before I lose it. So yeah. So my mission was to find out the grind, the geometry of the blade that I did, the modification that I did, is better than it was before. So one thing a few things actually I didn't like about it at first, and there was one major thing I didn't like about it, which I'll show you at the end of this video. I haven't got it on camera, but I'll explain what happened. Quite funny actually. So yeah, if you've seen part one, I was just basically telling you, I actually didn't plan on doing a video today. I was basically just testing these mods out that I did on the Warthog. But I thought, what the hell, you know, I'll share it with you. So yeah, as you probably see in part one, I modified the grind. So before it had a really thick edge, a V grind, and because it wasn't working out for me, I loved the knife, I loved the feel of the knife and everything about it apart from that grind. I hated that grind. Now even from a chopping perspective, a lot of people love this, highly rate this as a chopper, and to be honest, yeah, I suppose they're right, it is a good chopper. But for me, it kind of wasn't good enough, and the reason for that is, like I've just said, is that edge, that small V grind that they put on the edge before I did the mods. It was just way too thick, too shallow, too thick, and when you chopped it into the wood, it actually split the wood rather than chopping it, so you were never getting clean cuts before. So it was a bit like the Tom Brown Tops Tracker #1. The standard grind on that, as many people will know, was absolute garbage, and the chopping portion of that, similar to this, it was way too thick behind. The apex was way too thick. The grind was absolutely terrible, so obviously when you use to chop with it, it just obliterates wood rather than actually chopping it cleanly as it should. So it was similar to story to this. It was just, yeah, it's good at batoning and good at chopping, but I like my larger knives to chop properly, actually bury themselves into the wood rather than obliterate it. Obviously risk splitting the wood. So obviously that had to be changed. And again, if you've not seen my part one video to this, I also took the coating off this as well, so that I could use this as a scraper, and if need be, because I don't really do it much, strike a ferro rod. I don't strike ferro rods with my knives, as you probably know, for the people that know me, but it's there if I have to. I tend to use the designated striker that comes with it. But anyway, so we'll start off with some just relatively light tasks and compare it to what the grind was before. Now, I do apologise that I haven't got photos or video of the standard grind, but you can check out the standard grind. There's many YouTube videos on the standard grind, and people doing reviews on this. So this is basically just an update on what I did with mine and the improvements I made. So what I'm going to do first is, actually, I'm going to start from scratch. So what I'm going to do, use this stick. It's an old stick that I used as a pot hanger. As you can see, there's a notch cut out there. So what I'm going to do, my first task is, which this couldn't accomplish, well it could, but it failed to do it cleanly as I like. So I'm going to cut this down to size. Now I could quite easily use a saw, or I could quite easily chop it down to size, but this tends to be the first test I ever do with any knife. Is I like to cut this down to size purely by carving it rather than chopping it or sawing it, just so I can see first impressions, just how deep this can go into the wood. Again, I think this is ash. It's well seasoned, it's absolutely rock hard, so this will be quite a test for the new grind, for the new geometry that I've done on it. There's no way before, when I tried it, that with the standard grind it would it would do it. It would, but it was very hard to do it with the grind that was on it before, previous. But anyway, without rabbing it on too much, so I'm going to cut it down to size just by carving it. So probably about there, about a foot, would you say? About a foot. So I'm choosing an area where it's not going to be knotty, and so what I'm going to do is going to lay my blade flat to start with. I'm going to tilt the blade up until I can feel a bite. Now as soon as you feel that bite, that's the angle that you need to be slicing, cutting with really, and then you work from there. So that's little tip for you. Tried to do this video not to staying too late today, because obviously in these woods you get a lot of mozzies, mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes in the UK kind of like to come out in the evening / night time. And before I got a bit caught out, and you could probably still see the bites. I've got 2 there and 1 there. I think I had 1 on my back as well. Nasty mozzies. Anyway, stop rabbit it on, Lee. Just get on with it. So I'll angle the camera down here. So let's start here. Okay, so made my first mark there, and already compared to the old grind I can already feel how deep that bit into the wood, because obviously now I've done a thinner grind. So let's take it from there. So I'm going to come up just a little bit away from there to start my notch. Right about there, and then same as before, I'm going to lay my blade flat, and I'm going to just raise it slightly until I feel the bite. As soon as I feel the bite, that's the angle that I want to do it. I know my head is kind of missing, but I want the video to be about the knife and not me, because who wants to see an ugly guy like me? Okay, so that's about roughly the angle I want it at. So cut it into there, cut it into the cut, the stop cut as it's known. And again, this is really hard wood. It's dried out, it's solid ash, so it's not green. A lot of the woods actually used for this video is not actually green. They're all dry and hard, and so, but I don't like using green wood, and the reason for it is because using green softwood, it's not really a challenge for a knife. And I always believe that if you can do basic carving tasks with a hard wood that's been seasoned for a while, then it should be absolutely no problem for green wood. So let's just carry on. There's a lot of activity in the woods today. There's a lot of activity in the woods today. Not people, just birds and squirrels. Seen a mouse earlier, a tiny mouse just running across the ground. That was a good sight. First time I've seen a mouse in these woods. So I talk. Just get rid of that spider. See that spider there? I take more bugs and spiders on, I think, than so. Like I said before, I do have mental health problems, and one of the mental health problems that I have is, as you probably guessed, is, well, one of many, is ADHD. And with a lot of people with ADHD, they tend to unfortunately talk a lot. So if you don't like anybody that talks a lot in the videos, instead of getting on with what they're supposed to be doing, then this is probably not going to be the channel for you, if I'm honest. But I'm trying to talk to you guys as if I'm instructing somebody or teaching somebody how to do it, or maybe even a novice. Trying to explain to you the best I can through video format, as if you was actually here with me. That's the way I like to talk. So I can tell you straight away that just by changing that grind, it's made a massive difference to the carving ability. It really has, compared to before. Like you can see that first notch, look how cleanly that has just notched in that wood. Whereas before it wasn't a straight cut, it was all lumpy cut. I couldn't do the cut to get the wood out from the top, which I'll show you. So just do it not too deep, just a little bit deeper. Yeah, this is why my videos tend to go on and on, and obviously it's my fault because I waffle on about random stuff sometimes, and it can't be helped. It's who I am, unfortunately. And since this channel is for people, a lot of people with mental health conditions that I'm trying to encourage to come outdoors and do bushcraft, etc., then I suppose it's mostly for you guys, really. Okay, so what I mean about taking the material away from the stick, where it couldn't do before, is you want a thin enough grind on your knife, on your blade, to be able to remove materials successfully from things like notching. Because if your blade is too thick behind this apex, behind this edge, when you come to remove materials, which I'll show you, see if I can make that crunch. Just if you can hear this. Did you hear that crunch? It's not the best video, if I'm honest, but look how cleanly this massive blade has taken that out. Now before, when I used this out the box, it couldn't do that. Well, it could, but not as cleanly as that. I struggled to remove the material from the top because it was so thick behind the edge. It just wasn't biting deep enough into the wood there. So that's how clean it is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work from that, and I'm going to work around the stick to cut this stick in half. Okay, so I don't actually know the name of it, or even if it's got a name. Do you know when you want to cut something down to size with a knife, a bushcraft knife, survival knife, whatever, and you go round and round and round and round the stick, and then eventually you break it off, so it's a nice clean break. I don't know if that's actually got a name for it. I'll have to look it up when I go back. I've named it the beaver cut, the beaver cut, because it's similar to what a beaver does around a tree. So when a beaver wants to fell a tree, what he'll do, he will start at one end, and then he'll go right round the tree in a semicircle until the tree goes thinner and thinner and thinner, and then finally the tree goes like that, and there we go. But a little bit of information for you there. But anyway, we're not here to talk about beavers, are we? I think the only time I'm really quiet is when I'm trying to concentrate. because when you're using a sharp knife like I am here, you really need concentration. And with people with ADHD, we haven't exactly got the best attention span in the world, and accidents do happen, and has happened to me on several occasions because I completely forgot what I was doing, and I kind of lost concentration for a split second, and that's all it takes, especially when you're using sharp tools. Sometimes you can be a professional what you do, you can be doing it your job for 20 plus years, but if you're using sharp tools, all it takes is one slip and that is it. So it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, accidents do happen, and I have the injuries and scars to prove it. Okay, so yeah, this bites beautifully in the wood now, absolutely beautifully now. So as you can see, let's put it down. This location is quite muddy, so I don't like to leave my knives on the floor into the mud. So as you can see, my beaver cut there, you can see I've gone all the way around. That allows me to just do that, nice clean break, rather than chop it or saw it. Yes, it probably would be easy to chop it off or saw it, but if you want to test out a knife, you might as well do everything with the knife, with the tool that you're going to be using. So I'm going to discard this piece because it's already got a pot hanger notch in it. So as you can see, this has got a piff in the middle, but it doesn't really matter, especially if you use it as a tent peg. So I'm just going to clean that up a bit. For a stout knife like this, the ergonomics of it is absolutely superb, and although this, compared to the Generation 1 model Warthog, although this is made in Taiwan, as you can see down there, Taiwan, compared to the Gen 1 which was made in USA, they really designed this really well. And like I said in part 1, all the issues that the Generation 1 had, they have addressed them issues in the heavy duty version, and they've done it pretty damn well, if I'm honest. So and I'll go through the ergonomics on this and why I like it so much, and why it lends itself to both heavy duty and light bushcraft, basic light tasks. So for things like this, it may not be, can I say, what's the word? May not be much to guys that's watching this, but for us people like bushcrafters or people that like carving, having a carving kind of grinder with thin edge, even just for removing material to clean that up, which I'll show you, it's very important, because especially if you're in a hurry and you've got a knife that is too thick, too bulky to do even the most simplest tasks like this, then that, to me, it's useless. And if I'm honest, before I got this, I've been looking at this for years. Now, I've had the Generation 1, well, I've got 2 Generation 1s for ages now, but I've seen review after review after review on this K-bar heavy duty Warthog, and I've been putting it off for so many years of buying it. I don't know why, because I wasn't too sure about the shape, for one. It's not because of the looks. I'm not bothered about the looks. All I'm bothered about is the way it performs, and I wasn't too sure about the shape so far. But when you use it in the field, especially with the modification that I did to the edge, you begin to appreciate and you begin to understand why they come up with this shape and this handle. And again, I'll go through the full specs in the video. So I'm going to try and break this up into different parts. So this is part 2. I'll probably do, like I did before last week, I'll probably do a part 3. At the end of part 3, I'm just going to do a summary, I think. So smooth that area off, and this will be, if this was a tent peg, obviously that will be the part where I'll be smashing at the end. So what you need to do now I've cleaned that off is I want to go round and kind of chamfer these edges a bit, round these edges off a bit, because when you are hitting this, especially this having a pith in the middle, the chances of it splitting is extremely high. So I'm just going to go round, and all I'm going to do is just round the edges off. And again, this is, it may not seem important to, especially for novices or people that's never done bushcraft or carving, it may not seem a lot, but you'd be amazed on what a difference a simple modification to your tools or knives or whatever makes in the field. Okay, so all I'm doing is just rounding the edges off, and I'll show you like this. So I'm going around the edge and just rounding it off, so that when you come to hammer it, it's got less chance of the grain splitting. That's if it's not absolutely belting it down with rain and you've got a lot of time like I have today to do a good job. But I always try my best to do a good job in everything that I do in bushcraft, because it teaches you to be a lot better, teaches you a bit better with your bushcraft knife, your survival knife, whatever you've got. And ultimately, in the end, what you're after is you're kind of building that bond with your knife, because to a bushcrafter, a knife has to be an extension of your arm. Okay, this is your tool, what you're going to be using for pretty much everything. So you need to know how to use it and how to address every single angle, every single angle of your knife. Learn how to use it. So learn how to do delicate things like this. So this is called a push cut, which I'm doing with my thumb. And so basically you're putting your thumb on the spine of your knife, and just very gently, you don't even have to press on hard. This is why your knife needs to be incredibly sharp, so that you don't have to press on hard. So all you're doing is just very gently just pushing with your thumb and guiding the knife. So really you're not doing any heavy duty with your thumb when you're pushing it. It's there really as a guide. It's guiding you, and it's stopping your blade from kind of drifting off. It's keeping it stationary. Some people grip it like this and use the thumb like this, which I sometimes use like this. Do it at full speed. I'm not bothered about doing things at full speed today, but I'm more comfortable is actually putting my thumb on this thumb ramp here, or on the, if it hasn't got a thumb ramp, then I'll put my thumb obviously on the spine and do it that way. Because to do delicate work with a large knife like this, your hand needs to be as close to your blade as possible, not out here, because you've got no control out here whatsoever with your blade. So it's important to choose, if you're going to have a big blade, it's important to choose a blade where you can actually choke up on it like this, so you can get really close to your work. But if you're just buying a knife just to be a heavy duty chopper, then that is perfectly fine. But I wanted this to be a large can slash bushcraft knife. So as the saying goes, I always say this, is to be good at most tasks but master of none. Because when I did a video on survival knives, which I think is on this channel, I might have uploaded it, is because people have different opinions about what a survival knife should be. People say a survival knife is a knife that you've got with you. Other people say different things. I believe that a survival knife should be able to do most tasks in the field, but again, master of none. So as long as it can accomplish those tasks in the field, like chopping, batoning, carving, as long as it can do them tasks, then that's what a survival knife to me should be able to do. But we're not talking about survival. My life's not in danger. I'm not on a deserted island. Today we're talking about bushcraft, and is it possible to use this knife as a bushcraft blade with the mods that I put on it. Okay, so coming up to nearly 27 minutes now, so I'm going to crack on and get this peg done. Okay, so round it off the edge so you can obviously hammer down on that. The other side, it needs to be a point, but I used to do this a lot, but I've changed the way I do things now. When I'm making a tent peg, I tend to do the notch first before the actual pointy sharp bit on the end. And the reason for that is, if you're alone in the wild and you're making a tent peg or a trap, something like that, and you sharpen a stake on your stick, and then obviously you turn it round, which I'll show you, and then you put your notch in it, and you're doing this, that and the other. One thing to note is you have now got a sharp pointer bit, and you are now putting that sharp pointer bit towards yourself. So if you slip, where's that sharp pointer bit going to go? Yeah. So that's why I've changed what I do now. I'm thinking, as I'm getting older now, not over the hill yet, but as I'm getting older now, I'm starting to be less rushing about trying to do things, and really become more wiser, if you like, in what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose an area where I'm going to put, it's just relatively straight, so I'm going to just put a notch in, and I'm going to put my notch in maybe about a third or something like that. Yeah, that'll do. So again, you put your stop cut in, and yeah, bites really well compared to what it were before. So I'll put your stop cut in, and same as before, when I put the notch in, it's really an awesome carver now, this. But the mods that I've done to it, is that going to impact its ability to chop? That's one thing in part 3 I'm going to be doing. Okay. Probably hear that crunch. Now I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've done 8 kind of strands there, and I've done that on purpose. So you can see like 8 bit pieces there. Trying to focus. So starting my notch, and I need to remove that material. Now this is at the start of this video, this is what I'm saying. If you've got a knife that is too thick on the apex behind that edge, it's not going to get that material out very quickly, if at all. So by having a thinner edge, what you accomplish is where the stop cut is, your knife goes right on top of the stop cut like this, and then if I quiet, let's see if we can hear the bite. Don't know if you heard that. Okay, so you've got this bite here, so I bit it, and then what you do is kind of just take it out like that. Look how cleanly that has just done it. Now again, before it would not do that. Would not do that. I'm just going to tidy these edges up. And the more I use this knife, the more I'm liking it, just because of the way I've modified that edge. It's made such a difference. It really has made such a difference. Okay, so there's your notch. Really clean, really clean. Okay, so now I've done a notch. Obviously this is going to be a temp peg, so I need a sharp pointer bit on this end. So this is where the slicing ability comes into play. So because I'm sat down in front of the camera doing this, I get less leverage when you are taking large amounts of material off pieces of wood. It's a lot easier, excuse me, I just had my dinner. It's a lot easier to make something like this when you're standing up, because when you're standing up you get far more leverage. But for the purpose of the video and just to see how sharp that edge is, I'm going to be doing it sat down. So let's just say you're just chilling out at camp, you're whittling away, making something. So again, find out where the biting angle is, grip the knife in an overhand grip like this with your thumb tucked underneath, and all you're going to do, just waiting for the camera again, all you're going to do is slice. Now I'm going to be doing a video on the advantages and disadvantages of different knife grinds, which I don't think I've done before. I really can't remember, but if I have, I'll have a look when I get home. Okay, so again, the slicing ability is, you know, I'm not even hardly putting any effort into this at all. And for those that have got one of these, I want to use it as a more functional kind of bushcrafty blade, I would highly recommend you change that grind. But whether or not that's going to impede its ability to chop, again, remains to be said. But so far, this really comes into its own in regards to carving. Absolutely amazing compared to what it were before. Okay, so I've got 34 minutes on video. A lot of people's probably logged off by now, so it's probably going to be a 45-minute video, and then part 3, because I tend to waffle on, and part 3 is just going to be a summary and probably do some batoning and do some chopping with it as well. So I'm just going to speed things up a bit. Now when you're cutting, again, I don't know if I've mentioned this in the video, I'm not too sure. Another advantage obviously I can use this thumb ramp here to really guide that blade. But yeah, in regards to cutting, if you've got a blade with a grind like this, whether it be a saber grind or a flat grind with a high cutting angle, which is designed for slicing. So this blade's not really designed for pushing like a Scandi. A Scandi grind, despite popular belief, is not actually designed for slicing. A Scandi grind is more of a pushing blade because of that wedge shape. Okay, which I'll explain in the video if you're not too sure what I'm on about. But a blade like this with a thinner grind that's got nothing to impede its ability to slice, so there's nothing here, there's no thick shoulder here to stop it from slicing, like sometimes the standard Scandinavian grind has. So one thing I do, even with a large blade that you want to use as a slicer, is use the length of the blade to your advantage. Okay, so when you're slicing, you know, don't just do it down here and slice. Okay, especially if you're in a hurry. You know, I've got about 6-inch blade there, so it starts off relatively straight and then it kind of bellies out here. But I can use the whole length of that belly and this edge here to my advantage. So I can start down here and then I can do a sweeping motion here. Okay, so I'm just going to show you actually what I mean. Okay, so I've got another piece of wood here. I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, so if, like I've seen most people do, is try and push cut and then just try and remove materials like this. It still works, yes, but you can struggle a bit. And why, if you've got a longer blade, why restrict yourself? Why not use the entire blade shape to your advantage? You know, why would you make more hard work with yourself? No, when you're notching, it doesn't matter because you can use the first couple of inches of this for fine cutting ability. But for removing materials, you want to be doing it as quickly as you can and efficiently as you can. So rather than just sticking to that first couple of inches down there and just doing here like that, which can work, but I prefer to use as much of this blade as I can, which I'll show you. There's a knot there, so we'll see if it deals with that knot. Okay, now look how quickly I'm taking materials off by using the whole blade to my advantage, the whole length of the blade to my advantage. And this is why it's important to sharpen the entire length of the blade, making it absolutely like a razor. You know, your knife needs to be like a razor unless you are using it purely for chopping and nothing else. Okay, but if you want to use it as a bushcraft knife or for carving, then the entire edge needs to be hair popping sharp, so you can use the full length and that belly of the knife to your advantage. So I hit a knot there, but still went through it. And again, with the standard grind of this K-bar Warthog, I just wasn't getting that slicing ability that this knife is screaming out to be. I just wasn't getting it, because when you're out in the woods, forest, or I don't know, even if you're surviving or whatever you're doing, is you want to use the full advantage of the knife that you're using. So you don't want to sell yourself short. And you want the tool to do the work, not you. So why, if you've got a knife this size, why restrict yourself by just using the couple of inches down here. Now if you're doing delicate work then that's fine, but again, you know, slicing, use the full length of your blade, the entire length of it, to remove that material. Okay, so again, I mean, sorry I'm hitting the camera, hit a knot as well. So again, look at the amount of material I'm moving. In a short space of time, that's how much material I've removed. Now if I just restricted myself and just used that, I'd be still there about 10 minutes later. But anyway, time 40 minutes, so I'll be rabbiting on for 40 minutes. But that's the first demo. Slicing ability, yeah, definitely good, definitely a massive improvement. Nearly lost my tent peg then. So first part of the video, part 2, made a tent peg. Impressed with that, and from a health and safety aspect, as I said in this video, is doing the point before the notch, obviously when you're carving, or putting the point in before doing the end of it, because obviously if you're holding it like this and you happen to, very rarely happens, but if you happen to slip, obviously that point of it is going to stab you. So I always do the point last now rather than first or second. So just a little tip for you. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here, and then I'm going to go on to part 3, because I don't want this video to be over an hour long like one of my other previous videos is. So I'm going to end that here and go on to part 3, where we're doing something else, probably a little bit more heavier. And then I will have my final thoughts and conclusions of the Warthog, what I think to it, and was the mods worth it. So see you in this is part 2, so part 3. Bye for now.